Hello everyone and welcome to Brighouse Town TV. Tonight we've got a special guest on the channel, and if you do have any questions for our special guest, please drop them in the comment section below and we'll try to ask as many questions as possible. So to introduce him, our chairman likes to think he is the youngest chairman in non-league football, which has been proven wrong, but I am proud to say that we do have the youngest CEO in Football League on tonight, so I'm delighted to welcome Bradford City's Chief Executive, Ryan Sparks. Ryan, how are we doing, pal?
I'm good, how are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. So we are going to talk a bit about kind of your career and how you got to where you've got to today. But I just thought we would touch a bit to start off with about on the pitch, and we'll obviously end it with hopefully some of the questions that we get through today. All it is to start off with is Saturday. You got Grimsby at home. How big of a chance is it to get 3 points on Saturday?
Well, look, it's a big game for both teams on Saturday for different reasons. Grimsby Town need to win the game. We need to win the game if we want to keep our season interesting. By no means will it be an easy game. When you're going up against teams like Grimsby that are fighting for their future in this division. And to be fair, I think they're 8 games unbeaten. Paul Hurst has really improved their form. They appear to have better players on the pitch, and they've got some kind of formula that is getting results. So they'll be looking to stop us in our sort of tracks and get 3 points that could give them a chance of pushing to get out of the bottom 2.
Yeah, excellent. We're just going to touch on non-league for a minute, with us being obviously a non-league football club. How key is it for clubs like Bradford City to have these kind of non-league connections with clubs like Brighouse? And for those people who don't know, what other connections in non-league do you have?
We've got lots. I was talking today to Roy Mason, who's the Steeton AFC manager. Obviously Mark Truman naturally is connected with Silsden Town. And of course with Brighouse, we have a connection through James and the partnership with Yorkshire Payments, which is quite a developing partnership. And of course, we work very closely with Ecclesville United and Bradford Park Avenue, our neighbours. So it's very important. It's very important for the future development of certain players in our squad. We watch regularly non-league players. We scout non-league. Lee Turnbull has scouts watching players in National League and National League North and South and even below. So very important for us, and it's a way for us to give back, which at the moment is virtually impossible because football stadiums are more dangerous than pubs apparently now. So it is very difficult for us to support teams in the local area with regards to our crowds and finances that our crowds can bring. But in normal times, I think it's quite important, and I think it helps the likes of yourselves, Ecclesville and Bradford Park Avenue, when we get out there and play the games. Long may it continue. It's a massive pillar for me that we are playing our part in everywhere we can in this city and its surrounding areas from a non-league perspective.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of mentioned there the relationship you have with our chairman, James Howard, and I remember a few years ago when Bradford City came down to us, we had a crowd of about 1,100, which was amazing at the time. How close is your relationship with James? Now, are we hoping, fingers crossed, for another kind of game in the summer?
Yeah, he never stops ringing me, Damo, to be honest with you. He's my best mate. He works hard and he deserves a lot of credit for the work he's doing down there. It's very, very difficult. I've previously run, amateur teams myself, and it's extremely time consuming, and it's a thankless task sometimes. But that club's beginning to taking more and more strides. I noticed the women's team had a good result in the cup the other day over Newcastle United. So it's there. It's definitely a club that makes noise and that makes noise in a sustainable manner. And its structure. And I know when I'm down there, you see that the work that's going on to improve the facilities. There's a lot for James, and not only James. He's got a good team of people around him. I'm sure they can be very proud of.
Yeah, excellent. Let's delve into your career now. And I'll do maybe a bit of research on yourself. And actually, your first job, I believe, was actually in your kind of last year university in 2011, which you then carried on into 2013, being a sports editor for the Press newspaper in Batley. How did you find your first proper media job, and was it what you expected?
Yeah, Oh, hard work, really. You know, I was at university at the time, and I had some really good tutors, and they just said to me that, with all due respect, you need to be out there working. If you want to be in the industry, you've got to graft and find a way. And that's always been, you know, work ethic's always been something I've had. And I got working for that newspaper over a summer, I think, just trying to help them out. They're gone now. You know, it's a newspaper that's sort of is no more, which is a shame because it was a good little organisation, and we did some good stuff. And I got covering sport, and I realised that, you know, my true passion laid at the other side of the fence. You know, I didn't want to report on sport. I wanted to be in it. I was rubbish at it, and I still am. I try to convince myself I'm not, but I am. So yeah, that's really exciting for me. And you know, obviously Bradford Bulls was my hometown rugby league team, and it was my club, and I had a real interest in potentially going to work there. And yeah, you know, I got a chance. I remember I met Robbie Paul 2013 or something like that, late 2013, and he basically told me that the club wasn't in a good place, but I had an opportunity to, you know, cut my teeth, have a go at it, and I took the chance. So yeah,
excellent.
From there.
And then, well, kind of obviously, you went into it in your last year of uni, and there's students out there nowadays who are thinking after school, after college, you know, do I go to university to get into that kind of industry, or do I kind of go down the apprenticeship route? I mean, what kind of advice would you give to somebody?
I make sure you got lots of work experience. I mean, no one's ever asked me if I've got a degree, which kind of sums up, you know, I'm not saying don't go to university, but it's not been a massive thing for me. I think, and you know, in terms of the way we recruit, you know, if you have an interview, I'm actually more interested in whether or not that person's got the ability to do the job, the experience, or quite honestly, the sort of work ethic that's required to be in an environment like this. You get a sense of it. So you've got to follow what you want to follow. The university element for me was like a contact book. It opened the door to a lot of things. So for that, very, very positive. It just probably makes you a little bit more professional. It grows you up, you know. So, but my personal experience was to get out there and meet people and start working. And once I got, you know, a desire to be working and earning, you immediately take that forward, don't you? I guess.
Yeah, excellent. So after press newspaper, like you mentioned, you went to Bradford Bulls, where you was the media and PR manager for 2 years, which is obviously quite a prestigious job. The way that Bradford Bulls and where they were in the rugby pyramid at that time. Talk through what you kind of did there and what skills you gained from that role.
It wasn't much fun, I can assure you. It was a car crash, to say the least. It was interesting. Look, I learned a lot, and you know, when I took this job here as chief executive, the experiences that I had at Odsal live with me, you know, and that's, you know, obviously from the outside looking in, I'm relatively inexperienced, but I am fairly well experienced for the years that I've been in professional sport, which I think is about 8 now, and 8 or 9, and some of the things, you know, that I had to deal with up in that job were way beyond my job description. And I learned the hard way very quickly. You know, I saw it at the cold face, and the collapse of you know, arguably one of the biggest sports brands in world rugby, union or league. Unfortunately, I joined the club at the tail end of its time in Super League, and it's never been back since. So it was particularly difficult. But you know, I'm someone who likes to take as much as I can from a situation. And I met some good people. I met some friends that I'm still friends with now. And you know, you started working with players and getting to know how things work at board level. That was my first real taste of it. And I've been very interested ever since, really, you know.
Yeah, well, obviously the club's kind of on its way back up now. I mean, it's not reached Super League yet, but it's sort of getting there. I mean, with you having the passion that you do for Bradford and its city, it must be a good thing to see that the Bulls hopefully get into the Super League in the next sort of 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, I met Nigel Wood last week, actually. Obviously, he gets a lot of stick off his fans, and I understand that, and I think so does he. And, you know, we talked about a number of things. Talked about my time there, and he was interested, which I thought was very good. You know, we had a very good positive chat, and you know, Nigel gets a lot of criticism, but there's no doubt about it. I know my rugby league and that sport has not been the same since he stood down from his job to some degree at the RFL. That the TV deal is not going to be as strong Super League isn't as strong without Bradford Bulls in it. There's no doubt about that, and they need to get back there. I think that they've got a setup there which is financially sustainable. I think they need to do some work on the recruitment, and they've said that themselves. But you know what? With all respect, it appears to me from having met Nigel that they know what they've got to overcome. They need to get the Bulls back to Odsal and rekindle its identity. And if any way we can help and I can help, I'm more than happy to do that. It's an organisation that this city needs to be strong. I understand that from a Bradford City perspective. We've all got a role to play, and I think they want it to be strong, and they've got a sustainable plan as to how that might be able to happen. And we'll see how it pans out. But fair play for them. It's not easy, and the season hasn't started well for them. But you don't have to be defined rather by the way you start a season. So we'll see where they get to. But I wish them the best.
Yeah, excellent. And after you was at the Bulls, you spent a year at ISC, doing a similar kind of role before you then moved on to Featherstone Rovers, where you spent 21 months there doing head of communications. At that point, were you kind of thinking, is my career in media always going to be in rugby, or was your desire always to try and get into football?
No, I mean, the role I had with ISC was when I came out of the Bulls. I resigned from my job there, and the kit supplier actually gave me one, which was helpful because I couldn't be a part of it any longer, really, what was going on there. Quite honestly, I was bored senseless, in that role. I had to get back to sport. That's where my true passion is, and I wanted a project, and David Longo, who's now our commercial director here, just walked through the door there, and he realised that he needed people around him, and I just contacted him. I were away on holiday, and I'd been approached by Castleton Tigers at the time, and I don't think that was ever going to really pan out. So I just thought, I fancy that job. No one else probably wanted it at the time, and I took it. And we built something really good, which, to be fair, I think David deserves a lot of credit for the way that club is just now, and the fact that they've got, in my opinion, a Super League worthy team is, in my personal opinion, knowing exactly how that club works and what was going on there, is nigh on largely down to him and what he recruited. In terms of the staff and the pillars he put in. We had a clear vision and a strategy, and it wasn't easy. We weren't supported very, very much. With that, we did it our own way. It was like a family, but there's some really good stuff went on there, and that club was a non-entity when we joined, in my opinion, and it matters again. It's back on the mark. It's back on the map, which is what we said we'd do, and we took it on. Now we're here. So now he's with me back at Valley Parade, and I'm pleased about that.
Yeah, excellent. And then after that, you obviously joined Bradford City in 2018, head of media and PR. That was the year, I believe, that Bradford got relegated from League One to League Two. I mean, obviously for the fans, it was an hard year. But working in your first year there, how was it for you?
Horrendous. Yeah, absolutely terrible. Probably the worst year of my working life, including the Bulls. I won't dress it up. I was a part of some really difficult times here. It's a bit like how it felt when I was leaving Odsal, which, from a mental health perspective, was challenging, if I'm honest, to get your head around. I felt, oh my God, I've done it. I'm back in a club that's in a bad place. But I had an opportunity to go back to Featherstone very quickly, and I should have probably taken it at the time, I guess. The way it panned out, but Julian Rhodes came in, I think October, November. I met Julian. I'd never met him in my life. I really got on with him, which was positive. And I was approached at that point by Huddersfield Giants, and I thought, what, I could have a much more relaxing job, I guess, back in rugby. But there was something that I wanted to continue with here, and I felt like I had a bit to achieve, and I felt like I'd done with rugby, and it was time for a longer term challenge. And Julian sort of said to me, look, we can turn it round, but said, I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to walk away. And I said, no, I'm with you, let's see how this goes. And I've really enjoyed it ever since. I really believed in what he said, and I learnt a great deal from him rather. And he's helped build the club back to a point where I can try and take it forward now, and it's almost worked really well in that sense, and I'm obviously grateful for what he did for us, and I'm sure Stefan Rupp is as well. So yeah, it's the first year was particularly difficult, but like the last 18 months, even with a pandemic, have been much better, and it's been easier to work in the environment. And obviously, I took this job on in late November, and we were approaching the bottom of the table, and we hit it nearly in December. And obviously, I've had a bit more control over matters since then. So I've had 4 job titles here, so I've done quite a bit. But my first job title really was a bit of a laugh, wasn't it? Head of media and PR of a club that's public image was in a bin somewhere. So I had a virtually impossible task, I think, at the start.
Yeah, so in the club's time in League Two, you've kind of gone from Director of Communications to Director of Communications and Commercials, and now obviously the Chief Executive. Like you said, then I'm guessing that this season so far has been your most enjoyable so far at the club and maybe in your career?
I don't know about enjoyable. I mean, it's been a rough ride. It's been pretty exhausting because you're running a football club. You're running I'm now running a business that doesn't really make much sense. Football clubs are for fans. They're for supporters. They're not for me or you, are they? And we don't have any fans. So in the building, of course, which is rather bizarre and rather challenging. So it's been a challenging season, but I guess we don't know how it's going to pan out yet. But it's been relatively rewarding because it's nice when you see things that you believe in start to work out. We've got some longer term ambitions, and we've got some things we need to work on, but we are working on them, and I'm excited to see how things pan out, and I'm looking forward to the summer.
Yeah, excellent. If you were to look back at your time at City so far, how much do you think the club's changed and developed, both kind of media-wise and commercially, since you've taken over the reins of both of them?
Look, media-wise, I think we've come on quite a lot. I think communication is a massively important pillar. I'm not sure how well we were doing, to be honest, at one point, but it's an area that obviously that's where my expertise laid initially, and that's what I've tried to help. And I've got some really quality staff in that department as well, which is positive. I know how important that area is for our fan base, and it's not an area that we're going to let up on. So commercially, we're getting stronger, better deals, bigger brands, and brands that create. If you can align yourself with major brands, it helps you in more ways than one. And I think just in general, our sort of commercial partners perhaps felt a little bit left behind, ignored, not really engaged with at times. And I don't think many of them will say that now, which is good, even we're in a pandemic. So that's positive going forward. Our partnership with JCT600, our main partner, had lost its way a little bit, and I think we've got that back on track, and we're working really close now, and we're coming up with some nice things that I think will benefit both organisations in the future. But no, I think we'll come on okay, but we're not fall in love with ourselves. We've got a lot to achieve, and we're nowhere near where I think we can get to. So when we get there, we're done. So, but we're nowhere near yet.
Yeah, let's talk a bit about sponsors. We mentioned James and York's payments earlier, but there's obviously got a number of sponsors at the football club. I mean, how key have they been in terms of keeping Bradford City going, given the lack of revenue that's coming into the club at the minute?
Absolutely crucial. Without the supporters and our partners, we wouldn't be here. Simple as that. Our supporters didn't ask for refunds, 90% of them, after we curtailed the season, which was a massive help. And a lot of our partners have continued to pay into the business, even though they haven't fully had, if you like, what's contractually they're obliged to, so that's real fair play, and that'll never be forgotten by us. So to put it bluntly, massively, we genuinely would have had a real problem if everyone had said, no, we can't help you, So, and even sponsors who have done little bits of work for us, in the summer and in the off season and even during the season, just helps us out in many ways. And when the snow came down, people came forward with diggers and all kinds of stuff. And that's the kind of spirit that this club has to have. It's absolutely crucial we build that and continue to build it, because I think we are on with it. But that togetherness and unity is what people want. It's a tough city, Bradford, and we're grafters and we work together. And that's what utterly crucial to our future success. It really is.
Yeah, I'm going to say from the outside, I think I saw a story. Was it your game against Salford City where I think the snow came down and the groundsman slept underneath the pitch covering to try and ensure that the game was on, which unfortunately it wasn't. But that definitely shows what kind of characters you've got working at the club at the minute.
Exactly, and that was a key. That was a good example of where someone just said, "I'll do it. I don't care. We've got to try and get this game on." I asked, I spoke to Gary Neville. I said, "Let's try and get this game on. Let's try and be the only club that gets the game on." And we literally did everything and anything. We were warming up the grass, overnight. A kind of madness when you think about it, but we tried. So yeah, never mind. We failed on that one.
Yeah, and just going back to the sponsors, obviously they've supported you throughout the pandemic, before the pandemic. I mean, is there going to be any plans in the future when timing allows for them to come down and have a special sponsors day?
All kinds of stuff planned. There's things in the summer, and we will be having an evening for our partners in the future. We just got to see where COVID takes us, I'm afraid, Damo, and what we're allowed to do, which at the minute is very unclear.
Yeah, no problem. We'll touch a bit back on kind of like social media, and it's a club's social media. I know myself is everything nowadays. It keeps all fans involved, especially in these times when they can't go to games. But with COVID still about, how much is it a challenge for the media team to keep giving fans good content with all the restrictions in place and things that can and can't do?
Yeah, well, I think it's possible because we're playing a lot of games, and obviously we have a full-time team, so we can access them anytime we need to. But it's really important because, to be honest with you, I think we're providing some entertainment, not all the time, but most of the time we're trying to provide some entertainment for people who are sat at home, either furloughed or out of work or working from home. It gives people a bit of when they can't go to the football, they're able to do things. But our content guys are non-stop round the clock, and they're working on some good stuff and some campaigns that are going to come out in the next few months. So plenty of stuff on the way, I'm sure.
Yeah, excellent. Everyone's seen what's happened at Swansea City in terms of taking a stand against racism with their shutting down on their social media from 5 o'clock today for a week. I mean, what's kind of your reaction to it, and is it something that Bradford might be, getting involved with?
Yeah, I understand. The online abuse is something that I've had it myself, so I know how it feels. I've not ever been subjected to racism, and I can't imagine how that feels. It's something that really frustrates people, and it's disgusting, quite frankly. But I'm aware of what Swansea are doing. We've just been on an EFL call this afternoon where it was discussed, and different questions and comments were raised about it, whether or not it's done as an EFL across the board. I think my point is that, my view on that is we've got to make sure we do things that are really going to be impactful and long-lasting, and not something that keeps the trolls away for 1 week, if that makes sense. That's not what any of us want, and the abusers and the racists and all those horrible kind of people, they need to be completely obliterated from all forms of social media, in my opinion. And quite honestly, I think the social media platforms have got a lot to answer for themselves. We as clubs provide huge following, not so much ourselves, if you like, but the top-end Premier League clubs, millions and millions of followers, users, customers, people who they can advertise off. And, if you take Twitter, for example, they are making a fortune out of that. And therefore, in my opinion, you should police it far better. They need to protect their platform, or in the future, I know what will happen. People will find a different way to communicate if it's unsavoury. And if they do that, guess what? Twitter won't be the powerful business that it is now. So, I think rather than giving the Football League clubs seminars about hashtags, I think they should think about how they're going to protect people. And that's everyone. There's a number of people being targeted for various reasons, and discrimination is a very weak thing, isn't it? People who attack people are weak, in my opinion. Usually behind faceless accounts, and it's pretty tiring. And to be quite honest with you, you have to ask yourself questions about who they are as people to be even bothered about being that person. But each to their own, I guess. It's not for me. But yeah, no, for me, the buck stops with the social media companies as well. They really could do some more work on that. And I think as football clubs, we need to work hard and encourage the Twitters, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, and whatever else is out there now to come down hard and police what is going on out there and stop people just simply being able to have an account suspended and open a new one the next day, whether that's to do with your national insurance number, whether it's attached to your home address. So what? Other things are. Why not? But we support any campaign against that kind of thing, but we just want to make sure it's meaningful, long-lasting, and actually makes a significant difference.
Yeah, I'm going to say, because I noticed over the last kind of few games, rather than taking the knee, your players have been wearing the T-shirts to make a stand against racism. I mean, was that an idea from the club, or did it come from the players?
No, we'd never ever tell the players what to do. That entirely rests with the players. We discuss it all the time. We constantly talk about that movement, and collectively we decided that we would do something different for our game against Colchester, a club that had taken the knee. I think it was felt it had in some way lost the message, and we wanted to make it absolutely clear what our message was. So we took that game to do that, and we are using, our view is that we'll take a stand in the remaining fixtures in one way or another. So it's in no way us reversing out of that. It's more a case of how we take that forward, and we're not going to do things that are token gestures. We're going to do things that are actually meaningful and what we collectively as an organisation believe in. But the players will always lead that, and that's really important to me. If the players want to, if a player approaches us about doing something for a charity or anything like that, we'll always support the collective playing group. They're our people and they represent our football club, so that's really important to us.
Yeah, excellent. I'll start to have a look at what kind of questions we're getting through on the live YouTube comments, Ryan. There's one here from Chris Potter. He's asked, Ryan, are you thinking about bringing back the junior bantams next season?
Yeah, I don't think they've gone anywhere, have they? I didn't know they'd gone anywhere. Yeah, they'll be there. Again, it's the capacity permitting the capacity of what will be permitted by COVID and what we can and can't do, and we still don't know on many areas. But no, we've got we'll be removing that in any way. We're completely working to enhance our database and the way we communicate with fans. So you'll see more of that than less.
Spot on. We've got a few questions in regards to the ground from a few of the fans. One's asked, with the tunnel now being complete, are we expecting to see the benches and dugouts renovated?
Couldn't possibly comment, Demo. Maybe.
Spot on.
We'll see. We'll see what the tunnel brings.
Spot on. We had another one that's asking, what options are the ground looking at when the current lease runs out? I mean, is there any sort of ideas yet about that?
Yeah, well, the conversations about the future of Bradford City and Valley Parade will always be very, very confidential between ourselves and the landlord. Positive is that I've obviously got open dialogue with Gordon Gibb, and I've been over to see him recently, and we discussed many things, including the future. But right now it doesn't make much difference. We're here till at least 2028, and this is our home.
Yeah, excellent. I'm just going to touch a bit on sort of the young players that have come through from the academy and got the pros this season, and there's one I want to touch on, which is Finn Cousin-Dawson. He's obviously a lad that came to us last season on loan. He's come on leaps and bounds. He's now in the first team. I mean, how much did the loan with us kind of help him get to where he is now?
Yeah, look, we had a fans forum last year where a supporter asked about the fact that we never produce players, and it kind of stuck with me that, because I think that's just wrong. But the gentleman had a point in the sense that what is our strategy around that in the future, and I've always said that I would like to have players here that we own for longer, the ones that we create, and if they do move on to a club that we cannot compete with on a financial level, then fair enough, but at least let's get the best out of them while we can, and let's not just move them out or let them go away. And we've worked very hard on Finn and Reece, and we've got Keane in the squad at the moment, and we kind of changed the game a little bit for this football club by offering Reece and Finn 4 and 3 year contract extensions, which has never been done other than Oliver McBurney, and we all know how that worked out for the club and for Oliver. So yeah, and in terms of the loan, of course, we want these guys playing men's football, and what's been particularly frustrating, I guess, this season for Keane in some aspects, because he's played quite a few games now, George Sikora and Connor Shanks have not been able to go out on loan and have some time because the non-leagues have been curtailed, suspended, cancelled, paused, and in some cases we've not even been allowed to mix squads and things like that. So And I get that from a safety perspective, but obviously it's difficult for them in terms of their careers. So, we're considering their futures at the moment, some of those players, and we'll continue to do that. But we are looking after it. We are trying to create our own. We've got a structure inside the first team squad of what we will have in a squad in terms of young players coming through the ranks, and that's between us and the players. But we know how many we want to carry and the level and the quality of the player that we need to carry and how they need to be built to play league football, which is very, very important.
Yeah, excellent. We've had a question here from Nigel, and I don't know how much you know on this, but in terms of obviously May 17th is when you can have fans in. Is it going to be a case of that it's going to be some sort of pilot that's happening at Bradford City where you only get a certain amount of fans in, or is that past your date when your season's done and you have to wait till next season now?
Well, I don't know. I mean, the way it pans out, I think it's the playoff games that potentially could be a pilot. So I don't know whether we'll be involved in that or not at the moment. If we're not, then it'll be something in the summer, maybe a pre-season friendly or something like that would be pilot game number 1. We might even have 2 and 3. We're talking to the council at the minute. They're doing stadium checks. They're looking at our setup. There's a lot of work going on. We don't know too much about potential COVID passports, which we're now hearing about, and neither do the EFL. There's not enough clarity on it. But it's going to be a very, it's going to be slightly different, I think, to start with. We're quite happy to read about the Crucible the other day, because we have been snookered for a while, haven't we? But the World Snooker Championships having full crowds for the final as an indoor event, although it's not the biggest, I think it's quite positive for sport as a whole. So they must know something that maybe we don't, which is good. But maybe by August, fingers crossed, we can have Valley Parade in a normal way, and people will feel safe, and we'll be able to welcome them back.
Yeah, we've got a question here that's quite a different one away from football, Ryan. It's one that you get to answer quite personally. It's about your pizza topping choices. Do you like pineapple on pizza? If not, what's your pizza topping?
Ham and mushroom all day. Not pineapple. Who the hell would put pineapple on a pizza?
Excellent. We've had a question from a lad called James. He's asking about kind of the atmosphere section that you have at Valley Parade, and he was saying that the northwest corner was going to be used as a trial for your kind of atmosphere section in the ground. Is that going to be trialled again?
Yep, if we can, which was planned to be for the Leyton Orient game, which was the final game that never happened. Always go down in history. We made a programme for it, but it's never actually happened. We plan to trial it again, if not use it permanently. Again, that will be entirely dependent on what the virus does and what the restrictions are. If the restrictions are well and truly in place, we simply won't be able to do it. But those who are involved in organising it, we're communicating with at the moment, and fingers crossed we can, because it'll be something a bit different to keep kicking the atmosphere forward. It's a big stadium, and we need to make sure it's rocking as often as we can.
Yeah, because the stadium, it's easily the biggest in League Two. I mean, is that the attraction that some players see when they join Bradford City, is the fact that they get to play in front of 18,000, 19,000 fans?
Yeah, I mean, I actually don't really care about when players talk like that. I prefer players to talk about how they intend to win trophies and matches with us, and on the back of that, they'll feel the atmospheres. Talking about how big the stadium is utterly irrelevant. The stadium was built for the Premier League. At times it has been proven too big for us. But to be quite honest with you, I'm more interested in what players are going to do on the grass than what they, when they sit down and tell me how big the stadium is and how wonderfully it looks from the A650. I couldn't care less, to be honest with you. I've heard that one too many times. I'm more interested in about how they see their careers, what they want to do, and how they're going to help us win football matches. And if we have the stadium rocking at the same time, happy days. But don't get me wrong, there are players that like to come in and play for fans, but they need to be able to handle the expectations that comes with that. That's very important in terms of the character of the players that come through the door, and quite honestly, the mettle that they've got, because it is intense, and when it's not going too well, it can be pretty tough, I imagine.
Yeah, 100%. We've had a question come through in regards to iFollow, and I think you mentioned this in your fan forum a few weeks ago, but I'll ask it again. Has been any sort of progress with the EFL in terms of iFollow for next season? Is it going to be in place for fans who can't attend games, or?
I think it's just all on the review table. I wouldn't say progress. They know that they might have to roll it back out. Again, that doesn't entirely help us, but I think in the next 4 to 6 weeks we'll know for sure where that's going to be at. I think once we see some fans back in a stadium, hopefully it will slowly move in the direction of fans being back there more often than not. I've actually been at 2 pilot games this season at Crawley, which was not socially distanced in any way, and at Forest Green, which was very well socially distanced. And I thought at that point that might go that way, but I think the virus was out of control, and we didn't really have a vaccine, which we do now, and it's good to see so many people getting the vaccine. So we'll see how that goes. I follow. It's kind of on hold at the minute in terms of what next season might look like, but we are talking to the powers that be, and we'll find out when we can.
Yeah, nice one. We're starting to get a few less questions through now, Ryan, so I'm just going to wrap it up a little bit. In terms of like the last 6-7 games now of the season, are these the 6-7 biggest games of the club season? 8. Is this the club's biggest 8 games of the season now going forward?
Well, I think every game's the biggest game of the season when you're in a position where you realistically could make the playoffs. We're not going to get relegated, and that was our initial aim for this season, given where we were. But I see where we can get to. There are some really difficult games coming up in the next 8, and we're going to see the true potential of the squad, aren't we? But yeah, look, something to look forward to. It keeps it interesting. It means that we're not going to the season's not going to peter out like some other clubs below us in the table. But let's not kid ourselves. We're going up against a few clubs that are all after the same thing. There's about 4 or 5 teams around us all looking for 7th or 6th. And but we're in the fight, aren't we? And that's the positive part of it.
Yeah, nice one, Ryan. We'll wrap it up there. Thanks for joining us. It's been a really good chat about your career, about non-league, and obviously about Bradford City on and off the pitch. Thanks to everyone for joining.
Yeah,
really appreciate your support listening in. Keep an eye on all of our social media channels if you want to attend any sort of Brig House games in the future. We have got a tournament coming up in the next sort of 4 to 5 weeks or so keep an eye on our social media for that.